Hi, welcome back to the channel. Michelle. Today I want to show you a flip through of my Torchlight Level 3 binder. Now there are many components to Torchlight and I thought it would be helpful to show how I organize what we use. Now we do not use everything from Torchlight and I'll kind of show you when I go through this. You can check out some of my planning videos too to see how I transfer all the Torchlight into the planner type thing. But this is just a simple binder that I already had. I didn't go buy. As you can see, it's not the huge binders at all. I only do 6-week increments of the lessons. I take them out, put them into a done folder, and then reload this. But I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the insides of my Torchlight Level 3 binder. So as you can see, this is just my binder. I'm going to open it up here and show you the things I keep in here. First thing I keep in here is my daughter's schedule, and again I have a video on this. This outlines kind of everything she's doing and then our group work, so she can reference it if need be. But on this side I have my little post-its that I use. Sometimes I use them to mark pages, sometimes for notes. On this side I have our passages we're memorizing for Shakespeare, and then we just have some papers that go with other parts of Torchlight. For example, this is the United Nations Children's Rights, so I keep that in the binder. We also have it displayed in our homeschool because I think it's very important that children know all of their rights, and this is something that was brought up last year in Torchlight, so I think that's really important that I always keep a copy of that. And then you can see here I have some tabs. I have our current lesson, I have our lit primers, I have our lesson plan by weeks, and that is it. And then I have a folder in here, which I'll show you what that is. So I do not print and have the entire Torchlight curriculum bound, and I would not recommend doing that unless you've used the Torchlight curriculum, you're really familiar, and you're sure you're going to use all of it. There are some components of Torchlight I have found since using Level 2 last year I don't use. I don't need everything printed and bound. So what do I actually print and bind, or put in my binder? So I print the book list because it will tell you on here what week it is used, just so I can quickly reference that. I really like that there's a key here that tells you what each of these mean. Next, I have a book list. This is something I created on OneNote, and again, this is in my OneNote. I have a video link above how I use OneNote to kind of plan my homeschool year and organize everything. But I have all the books that are needed. This one is considered a spine, that's why it's highlighted. But on this side, I will write where I'm getting that resource. So whether it be the library, obviously I have this covered here because it has a lot of our library information. If it's coming from the library, if I own it, if it's on Hoopla or other digital devices like Libby where I can access it, if it's an audiobook. So that information will be put there. So I quickly go through the Torchlight list and I'm able to see what books. And again, I do this in the pre-planning stage to figure out before we start Torchlight. Next thing I have is the acronym sheet. As you will see in the lessons, they use acronyms to mean different things. So for example, this is a book, Paint Lab, this is Curiosity Chronicle. So just especially in the beginning, if you're not familiar with those acronyms, there's a cheat sheet there. And sometimes I do have to look back. I always forget Stage Full of Shakespeare, so I have that. I also print out the book list by week. Now, what I like about this is it also has the extension books. So I can make notes of when I need to get those books because we go week by week. So that is really helpful, and of course that is in there. So we come to my first tab, which is the current lesson. The current week we're on is always behind this. I have found it easier than having all of them together so I don't get confused. So this is the basic outline of Torchlight. It goes by the week. As you can see, there are things crossed out. We don't do the vocabulary spell book. I do not do the writing language arts portion of Torchlight because we use other resources for that. And I do not do the science. We use Core Knowledge Science. If you didn't know, it's completely free online. I'll link it down below, but I do not see the need to add a different science in, but that is what's recommended. And what's nice if you do use that is not only do you get a coupon code for when you buy Torchlight curriculum, but it actually tells you in your weekly prep what supplies you would need for science. It also tells you what supplies you would need for art, which is really helpful. So I have this printed for each week. And again, I only print in 6-week chunks. We do the Sabbath scheduling, 6 weeks on, 1 week off. That way my binder's not huge, and I can go through the papers throughout the year opposed to having a huge stack to go through at the end of the year. I always have a post-it on my calendar to tell me what books to get and when, because again, this means next week I will need the Women in Art book, and I will need the Granted book from the library. And again, I can go through that page I originally made, and it'll tell me where that is. If it's my local library, I can pick it up. If I'm having sent from another library associated with my library system, it'll take longer. So that helps me with that. So on the back here, it shows you kind of the checklist. This can be used for your student or as an adult. Again, I cross out the things we don't use: science, writing. There are some components of the art and music we don't use as well, but it tells you what you're going to be reading, tells you your Shakespeare that you're going to be doing, your art, music, if you're a checkbox person, that type of thing. One thing I really appreciate too is that it has the extensions, so extra things you want to do. For example, we will be watching these specific videos talking about the turtle ship, because the topic this week in history has to do with Korea. So we'll be using these extra video resources. We will be using this book resource from the library. So I really like that. It's kind of like a unit study, but everybody's doing the prep work for you, which is really, really nice. So there's always a bunch of resources. I think last year the resources were done in one large page, and I really like that it's broken down by week here. So that is the first week. So again, we have lesson plan weeks. So this is all the other weeks, and you can see in my prep for the 6 weeks, I go through and write when I will need a library book so I can get it in time. I also write what library it's coming from so I know how long it will take. So here are the other lessons, and again, in that weekly prep, I go through and cross out the things I know we're not doing. So I know Monday we have a read aloud, we have Curiosity Chronicles or history, we have a specific activity that goes with that, and then we have Fantastic Failures books. So that breaks it down for me. There's also learning partner prep. So you as the teacher, here's what you kind of need to do. These are the supplies you will need for that week. So it's nice. So that is that. And the only other thing I print from there is like a student workbook, and like I said, a vocabulary spell book. These are things I've looked through that I know we're not going to use. There's a lot of extra things that come with Torchlight that I don't think are necessary. For example, geography. I don't think it's a very good program that they use in here, so I don't use it. I don't think people realize you can pull the things you want and not use the things you don't want to use, because there are so much to Torchlight. It can definitely seem overwhelming, especially when you try to schedule it, because we have obviously math, language arts, other group subjects to do. So this is how I'm able to fit Torchlight into those, because I'm not doing every aspect of it. So I really do like the lip primers. These are kind of the questions that go with it. I really like that in each book. So for example, when we read Shakespeare's Secret, this is kind of gives you why it's included in here, some possible concerns you might have. So there are things about religion being mentioned, if that's mentioned it's here, if it's a difficult situation or a violent situation. You don't often have any type of violence, but just bullying or things like that, it will be included in here. So all the books we've read for Torchlight, most of them I've never read before, so I really appreciate that it has that. Different vocabulary words you'll go through again if you do that vocabulary spell book. And what I really like is it's not just comprehension questions. It's not like, well, why did the character do this? It's asking you to do more critical thinking, to explore why characters reacted in certain ways or made certain decisions, or what would you do if you were in that situation. And it really leads to some really great discussions, and this is one of the reasons I love Torchlight, is because it's taking it to such a deeper level than most curriculums do with just basic comprehension questions. So I have the lit primers for, so you can see this is what we're currently reading, and we will go through, and I'll just, when we finish, we are doing an audiobook. I highly suggest audiobooks for the read louds. It has really made a difference. It's also really nice for my kids to hear different perspectives and viewpoints, but also different voices in their heads. Often when we read, it's our voice in our head, right? Or when we were listening to read loud, it's the person reading. So having those different voices to represent those different people, I think, is really important. There are some nuances that when people speak, you don't necessarily catch unless you're that person. So I really like that they get different voices through that. But I usually just keep a post-it of where we are at, and we'll stop that chapter when we're done, and we'll just go through the different questions. So I have all the lit primers printed, and then I have the back. This is an old folder my daughter used for, I think, kindergarten. We had it on hand. Again, I don't buy a lot of new supplies. I just use what we have, hence the binder. So in here I have some history sources. We do a fortune teller activity as a review every couple sections of our Curiosity Chronicles. I kept the instructions of how to fold the fortune teller because in case I forget. I also keep an extra copy of my daughter's schedule, and I keep our homeschool schedule in here as well. On this side, I've kept some of our resources for human body just because it's kind of chunkier, so I needed somewhere to store it. And then some grammar things we use so my daughter can reference when it's time to correct her IEW. She knows what the marks I'm making mean. And then the thing all the way in back is our Curiosity Chronicles. So again, I print 6 weeks worth. You do 2 chapters a week in Curiosity Chronicles, which seems like a lot, but they're only about 10 minutes because we use the audiobook portion of it. And I only print out, and this is from, I believe, the teacher resources, because I bought the entire bundle with the audiobook, the physical book, the teacher resources, and the student guide. Now, in Torchlight, it does not have, it just has reading the chapter. It doesn't have any of this as an extra, but I do like to use this as an extra to kind of reinforce what we're learning. So it will give you a breakdown of people in the chapter, places, things, comprehension questions. Again, some of these are straightforward, like why did they do this, or what happened during this battle. But a lot of the things I do like is what do you think questions. There'll also be 1 to 2 questions getting your child to do that more critical thinking. Again, they have a timeline if you are the homeschooler that enjoys doing a timeline. And they also have map work if you are the homeschool that enjoys doing map work. We are not. So what I take from these is the comprehension questions, the what do you think questions, and my youngest really enjoys doing the coloring page. So I will print the hands-on activities for that. There's also a Minecraft activity for every chapter if that's your thing as well. We don't do Minecraft. So I will print the activity so I know what we're doing. And there's usually 2 activities per chapter. So you can kind of pick, as you can see here, I chose the turtle one where they get to construct their own ship. It's kind of a STEM challenge. Chapter books for extra resources is really nice as well. And then these are the coloring pages that go with it. Again, this is if you get the student pages, I believe. So my youngest really enjoys doing this. So I will print 2 copies of that for this. And then it just goes on. Chapter 18, same thing. Same layout. We'll have the comprehension questions, what do you think questions, and then the coloring pages. And then there's usually activities, since you do 2 chapters a week, I choose to do one activity during that week. So either the Tuesday or the Thursday that we happen to be doing history, I will pick an activity, and this is already pre-planned for that. So that is a quick overview of how we do that. And some of the activities are crossword puzzles and things like that as well. And then when I'm done, I just stick it in the back in order, so when I go to use this in the future, everything's already in order. And that is everything I use for the Torchlight binder. And again, this sits on our shelf. It definitely comes down every morning with me when it's time for school. But it's a simple way to organize everything, and you can reference everything you need to. So if you have any specific questions about Torchlight Level 3 or organization, let me know down below. If not, thanks for watching.